Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Welcome to Safir TV. You're watching Breaking Boundaries with myself, Bilal Ali Hugh. And this week we'll be discussing police, Muslims, and community relations. I have a guest with me this week from the political arena, I could say.
Yeah, that would be true.
Kevin Hurley. It is Commissioner, Police and Crime Commissioner Kevin Hurley.
Yeah, I'm the Police and Crime Commissioner for Surrey, which is just southwest of London, between Heathrow and Gatwick. I'm one of 41 of us because we're all elected. Some are from major political parties, they're Tories or Labour, and some of us are independents. And funny enough, in Surrey, I'm an independent, which, considering all the 11 members of Parliament in Surrey are Conservatives, makes for an interesting political setup because they're pretty upset that I'm not a Conservative.
I hear that.
In 6 weeks' time, I'm up for election again, so they've got a chance to throw me out. So I might just be back to normal in early May.
Okay, well that's intriguing, but we'll hope to stay away from the partisan politics
Indeed.
and quiz you about your knowledge and your perspective about the subject matter at hand.
Yeah, of course.
And salam alaikum and peace be unto you. I think I think you're one of my first, if not my only, non-Muslim guests, but it's an honour to have you again. When you were here last time.
I'm grateful. I spend a lot of time in all the different mosques in Surrey, and it's not only because I like the curry, but I get on with a few people in different places. So.
Okay, excellent. So I wanted to start off by asking you your first experiences in terms of policing and the climate of policing the Muslim community, because you have a history in the force.
Well, that's right. I mean, funny enough, I come from a family of 9 police officers in London. My dad was in, my mum, my uncle, my 2 brothers, my 2 nephews, and indeed my own son. And we were all, the last 6 of us, were all detectives in specialist units, actually. So I started as a cop back in 1979. And if I'm honest, my exposure, or my even thought of different religions making up the mix of London in those days, 79, was almost minimal. In fact,
almost non-existent.
Yeah, I mean, there were of course Muslims, and there were lots of ethnic minorities from either Africa, the West Indies, Caribbean, and of course Muslims, Algerians, and so on, Egyptians. But in those days, I suppose, as a young cop, people's religion wasn't even an issue in terms of policing. And I guess if I really move forward and I think about my career, the first time people's religion was ever an issue in policing, or one even started to think about it, was probably at 9/11. It kind of wasn't even on the agenda. As a detective or as a cop, you're involved in dealing with thieves, robbers, drug dealers,
lawbreakers,
rapists, anyone.
Yeah.
And the first time, I suppose, people's religions ever came into something was on the day when the Twin Towers came down, because that was the first major terrorist act, I suppose, where British people ever thought that someone from the Muslim religion was involved in it, because before that it was always Irish Catholics or Irish loyalist Protestants blowing up each other or planting bombs in the UK. So I suppose religion was an issue from a point of view. We were very concerned about Irish Republican terrorism, and funnily enough, my name is Kevin Barry, and I remember saying to you before, I'm from an Irish Republican family background. My grandfather was in the IRA, fighting the British after the First World War, leading up to the Irish Republic being set up. And indeed, a man who was hanged by the British for the murder of 3 British soldiers was a young medical student called Kevin Barry. He shot 3 of them in Dublin. And I'm named in his honour. I'm actually named after Kevin Barry. So I suppose in terms of my knowledge of the history of that kind of stuff, I guess what you might call religious-based conflict, but then all conflict is actually power-based rather than religious. It goes right back to then. I can remember one day going to the headquarters of MI5 as a senior cop for a briefing on terrorism, and then looking at my business card and saying, Kevin Barry, how on earth did you get to this job with your family background, you know, because they would.
They knew the name. They knew
you
the
know,
name.
that name is so symbolic amongst Irish Catholics. He is the big hero of Irish Republican army people. It's quite funny to be named after him, and then ended up being a police officer. But going back to your point, for me, even at 9/11, people. I was at that time the only chief superintendent of the City of London Police in the middle of London. You know, it's that small area that does where all the banks are, St Paul's Cathedral. A lot of people don't know they're separate from the Met.
Separate from the Met, yeah.
Yeah, they wear a kind of red and white checkered band round their hat. And in days gone by, they all had to be 5'11" tall, but of course they lowered the standards with me. They took me in as a transfer from the Met because I was always known to them as the metronome because I was a bit small. But anyway, I was the uniform chief superintendent. I can remember to this day, there was a big demonstration going on at Docklands where one of these defence exhibitions was going on. You know, all the defence contractors from all over the world take over the Excel Centre.
Oh, yeah.
Bringing missiles, tanks, guns, bombs, aeroplanes and warships to sell to people.
To do business, yeah.
And people come from all over the world, you know, the Middle East, Africa and so on to buy the stuff. And you always used to get these anti-war demonstrations. So I was at Scotland Yard in a big control room they got there, a big room with all these TV screens on the wall, helicopter downlinks of the demonstration going on, like you see on the TV. And there was a small Sky TV screen in the corner, and someone said to me, look at that one, the Twin Towers is on fire. And I said, oh yeah, and we were like, I was watching it, all of a sudden another plane went into the building. Like, what's going on here? Well, later on that afternoon, we all senior officers in London went to a briefing, and we were saying, well, who's behind this? What's all this about? And I kid you not, some people from the special branch said, it's AQ. And we all said, well, who AQ? What's AQ?
That was a level of knowledge at
Yeah,
that time.
yeah. I mean, maybe in the special branch they knew about it. And of course, you know, we know that Al-Qaeda was behind bringing down the aeroplane in East Africa, and they'd done a bombing, I think, at the Kenyan.
Was that in
the
Nairobi?
US Kenyan
Was that in
embassy in Nairobi. But, you know, I didn't know. I hadn't even heard of Al-Qaeda. And I'm sat there and they're going, it's AQ. And I'm thinking, who are these? And bear in mind, I was the only chief superintendent of the City of London Police at the time, where we'd been used to the IRA putting bombs in London. And I think, well, who's Al-Qaeda then? And they're saying, we think it's UBL. Well, who's UBL? Oh, it's Osama bin Laden, or Usama bin Laden. That the knowledge at the beginning of September was that, and then it was kind of well, these people are all as it developed. The guys all from Saudi Arabia, and they're all from some Muslim sect. It's kind of and what? I mean, we didn't see.
So
there
what
was
about
an issue.
before? So what about before that? Because I'm going back in my memory. And I'm thinking, for example, well, generally, Islam in the 70s would have been, you know, seen like Eastern religion, like Buddhism and mysticism, and just the philosophical, the poetry of Rumi and things of that nature. And obviously, then we had the Salman Rushdie affair. But still, the climate wasn't. The climate wasn't.
I mean,
some street demonstrations,
even
a few
in
book burnings.
Yeah, I mean, Salman Rushdie. Everyone knew there was a place called Iran, if you like, and the Shah had been kicked out, and there'd been an Islamic revolution there with the Imam coming back from Paris, as I recall. It was Paris he came back from, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
It was. But everyone was aware of that, and that there'd been some kind of. I can't remember what the correct term is, where there's a kind of what do they call it?
A new system was installed.
Yeah, but we knew there was this guy called Salman Rushdie, and there was some kind of threat to his life. That was about fatwa. But what's a fatwa? I mean, we just did. The only thing we were concerned about prior to 9/11 was whether or not there would be a resumption of IRA terrorism, but there were the new emerging groups of the continuity IRA and a group called the Real IRA who was still doing some bombings and shootings over in Northern Ireland. But of course in the City of London, where we'd had the Bishopsgate bomb and other bombs all around it, our main concern was that, and I suppose it was a real sense of, so someone's drove some aeroplanes into a building. What's all that about? And I suppose
the impact so how did that relate to England? Because I mean,
well, I mean, I can only talk from my position as what I was then, which was a pretty senior cop, our reaction was, oh, what do we do? And there was, of course, the City of London's got some tall buildings, so people were scared or worried. But in the end, everyone wants to do business. And so we kind of reacted in the only way we could, which is put more officers out walking around the street in yellow jackets. A decision was taken by someone above me, the City of London Fraud Squad, and let's be honest about it, they are seen as the experts on company fraud in the country, specialist detectives who normally wear suits like this, old guys like me, ones like you, but you're looking a bit old if I may say. But anyway, the decision was put them all back in yellow jackets and helmets, walking around the City of London. It was kind of like, that's about the best we can do in case someone, you know, and I suppose my awareness of this new emerging radical group grew very quickly from that, because within a couple of weeks I found myself over in New York looking into what was seen initially then the anthrax releases. Do you remember that at the time someone started sending a biological warfare agent called anthrax through the post in letters? Well, of course, the initial thought was, who's behind this? Is it Saddam Hussein? What's all this about? And I was sent over to lead a team of senior cops, fire chiefs, ambulance chiefs, some health chiefs to see how the Americans handling it. What would we do if letters with this white powder started coming through the post? And as part of that, of course, we went to New York, where some of the letters had gone to journalists, and Washington had gone to a senator there, and also down in Florida they'd gone to a journalist down there and killed him. But within a couple of weeks I was walking through Ground Zero in the middle of the night, dark, freezing cold, because we were moving towards October then, and it was a surreal sight to see this huge area, monstrous area of a pile of rubble, all the steel acetylene cutters going on as they were still trying to find people, covered in firemen, police officers with helmets on, these iron workers trying to cut it up. And I remember thinking, there are over 40 huge cranes lifting the stuff, and I was thinking, this is like Dante's Inferno, you know, this is what hell must look like. And even then you weren't thinking, what was this about? So I guess leading on then about policing and Islam and Muslims, still really no one was making any kind of issue. And then I think you got around the country one or two right-wing attacks on mosques, and people started thinking, oh, we've got anti-Muslim attacks. And then we had this new phrase came in called Islamophobia. And of course, everyone's thinking, what's all this? You know, the police almost were bemused because, you know, to the average cop, none of this. And what would develop from that then, I suppose?
Because it's all changed, but you're giving an interesting history about.
That's kind of how it all went.
The backdrop, yeah.
Because back to then, you know, what we're talking 14 years ago now, 15 years ago, it wasn't even an issue. No one ever thought of anything. And of course, I suppose, have we've had these different incidents starting to occur, and I suppose the real game changer was the tube trains in the UK 77, following on from the train attacks in Spain, if you remember Metro in Spain. They kind of started people thinking, what is going on with this extreme kind of fascist adulteration of what is a wonderful religion, you know? That, and people started waking up to it then.
And what I'm hoping that maybe in the next portion that we can go into possibly how those representations conducted by my extremely small minority elements now in the public domain or in the public space, in the media space, takes up, you know, massive column space and almost attempts to represent the majority. And this is ongoing cliches and
people don't get it,
ongoing
the
dynamic.
The level of ignorance of Islam amongst non-Muslims is amazing, really. I suppose it's understandable because people, if I said to a Muslim, tell me all the different sects of Christianity, most of them couldn't say. You've got Catholics, there's an extreme form of it called Opus Dei, they're the ones who wear those kind of hair shirt things around their legs that cut into their legs to make them bleed, and you know, wear hair shirts to make themselves bleed. A bit like sometimes you get within Shia religion, where people, I can't remember what they call it, they'll flail their backs. I can't remember what you, but you know,
The self-flagellation.
which is probably.
I don't think some of the scholars have advised that this is something not best done.
Yeah, but you know, there is an extreme section of Catholicism that practices like that, and then of course it splits into various forms of Protestants. So you've got Lutherans, you've got Church of England, and you've got who knows how many evangelist churches, Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witnesses. The average Muslim wouldn't know about all of these. So the average Christian or non-believer of anything is not going to know that you've got Sunni, you've got Shia. You know, there are groups called Ismaili Ahmadiyyan. They wouldn't know about these, and they wouldn't know that, you know, at one end of Sunni belief system, you've got Salafists. You know, following Sheikh al-Wahhab and the Wahhabists. They wouldn't understand what that's about and how that is, shall we put it, I suppose you might call it, to the far right of Islam in terms of the belief systems of that. Perhaps they are the least accommodating end of it. But people just wouldn't get that, you know. And it's amazing that.
How does that play out for you in your role? Because you spend a lot of time in the Muslim community, not the music, but in Muslim communities.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Sunni mosques, I'm in Shia mosques, I go in the Ahmadi ones, and I know a lot of people don't like what the Ahmadis stand for, Ismailis. How it plays out for me, in my area in Surrey, about 10-11% of the population are ethnic minorities. About 10% of those tend to be of Pakistani heritage. Largely Sunni, but quite a lot Shia, and a smaller number of Ahmadians. And then there are people of African heritage, mixture of West and East African. I spend a lot of my time trying to educate people in the, what you might call, the Old English community about the different forms of Islam. You know, I mean, I can talk to you about the pillars of Islam, you know, what Salalah is or whatever, going to Mecca, how important it is for the Hajj and all of that, because I get that. I know if you're a Shia, you know, you're a follower of Ali, the commander of the faithful, so I kind of...
You've done your homework.
Yeah, well, I'm more than that, you know, it's important. If you want to engage with people, you need to know what this is about, you know, what Ramadan's about, what Iftar is, and so on. But I spend a lot of time saying, hang on, let's understand the different areas of Islam. Let's understand the different points. Because I'll tell you what I see, what concerns me, and it's almost after all this business that's been going on in Syria and in Iraq, that you've got lots of young people, Western Muslims from Canada, UK, and so on, Europe, going off to Syria to join Daesh or IS, whatever you want to call it.
Whatever they call it, a particular week their name is.
Yeah, exactly that, going off there. And I've been involved in a few meetings with the Muslim community where mums and dads come along, and I see some detectives who are supposedly involved in dealing with managing the risk from terrorism, having seminars. And I kind of talk with some of them, and I think your level of understanding of Islam and the different sects means that you're actually off to a no-starter trying to engage with these people.
Why is that? Why do you think that?
You know, because you know, some won't even know the difference between all the different sects. But you know, we need to look at history. It's kind of like there's a big problem allegedly about lots of people from the UK and so on going off to Syria.
That's what the headlines tell us.
Yeah, that. If you look at the history of young men from the West, from the UK, who, how can I put it, are passionate or a bit hot-headed, whatever way you want to call it. Thousands of them in 1936 went off to fight in the Spanish Civil War against fascism there, against the fascist government of Spain and against the Nazis. And they went off there and then they came back. And you know what? Britain didn't fall apart as a result of it. You know, so yeah, I think there is there's a reason to be concerned about, frankly, a lot of these kids going off there.
Absolutely.
And the main reason I'd be concerned is if I was their mum or dad, there's a pretty good chance they're going to come back dead or in pieces or mentally messed up. And the approach I always take when I'm talking with the Muslim communities are, if you think one of your kids is getting involved in that and you want help, then reach out to me or reach out to one of my team, and we will find a way to put the appropriate people there to see if they can assist you in guiding your son, generally it's your son, or your daughter, to an appropriate imam to give them advice about looking at it in a different way. And I approach it from the point of view of saying, it's actually good that your son or your daughter is passionate about their religion. It's good that they care passionately about something. But what I don't think is good is that they're going to destroy themselves and destroy the family by ending up getting themselves killed or maimed. So I think the wise way of approaching this is from a family point of view, as opposed to you must prevent them. They could turn into a terrorist when they come back. Yes, some might do.
You're saying a family point of view, so that gives me the idea that you're approaching them like UK citizens as part of the society.
Well, of course
you're
they
doing
are.
a service.
Of course they are.
But oftentimes when we hear the discourse in the mainstream, it's almost like an enemy within.
What?
They're not truly British. They're not truly part of the society. They're a fifth column.
Exactly. Unfortunately, some people with right-wing views, and equally some people who are less aware of it, don't think where we are. Hey, we're a multicultural society. There are probably 5 million people living here from other places with different colour skin to me. This is how the UK is, and we're a much better country for it. We're much more profitable. We are the most successful economy in the UK. And let's be straight about it. If there weren't people here of Indian heritage, African heritage, cultural, Caribbean heritage, creating wealth, we would not be the leading economy in the UK, while some people think we're sufficiently strong enough to leave the European Union. And that is partly because the immigration that's come here has led it that way. Because the bottom line is, about most people who immigrate to another country, historically, they do it because they want to do well for themselves, well for their families, and well for business. So, I know your family are of Caribbean heritage from, we were discussing earlier, from Jamaica and Guyana. They didn't come here just to be on the dole. They came here to make something of themselves.
Absolutely.
To create an opportunity for you, their family, and so on. And it's the same when you meet someone, whether they've come from Afghanistan or Iraq or Pakistan.
People have come to
India,
better themselves.
They come to better themselves, They want to do better. We'll talk about that, why that is a problem later on, about getting more ethnic minority representation in the police. We should come back to that one. But the bottom line is, staying with this subject...
That will be a big talking point
later.
later
Yeah, we'll come to that in a minute, but we'll come back to it, but I think it's worth discussing. The bottom line is, the new Britons, I'll call them, have added value to this country, and we need to crack on and stop all this business about saying, there's an issue in that community, there's an issue in that. There isn't, but what there is, because people from South Indian heritage tend to live more insularly within those groups, what you might call the indigenous old British are kind of a bit concerned about what's going on there. So we need to break down that fear, which is what I'm talking about. But equally, we need to get the other groups to be reaching out to what you might call the more established community, which is why only a couple of weeks ago I was at the mosque in Camberley, which borders on the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst, interesting enough. Gave me an interesting idea, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. Where they were part of National Mosque Open Day, and there were hundreds of mosques up and down the UK inviting people in.
Okay.
And what we need to do is much more of that, and advertise it much more widely, because if you've never been in a mosque, you worry.
Let me just jump in there, because we may have to explore that also in more detail, but we're just coming up to the first bit, but a very interesting opening from yourself, Kevin. And we hope to hear from you on 0203 515 1234 after the break. Till such time, Assalamu alaikum.